All right, looks like we're live. YouTube, sorry, technical difficulties again. I don't know where the other two fellas is. I know Tyler's not gonna be able to make it. But we got Brandon Potts from here, Build to Rent Texas. So good morning, man. How's everything going?
Everything's going well. It's good morning.
Yeah, you've been busy. I know. I've been seeing you in school, posting a lot of stuff. So what are you working on currently right now?
Right now, in the middle of two single family builds, and one of them we got dried in here yesterday. Actually, they were roofing yesterday before the rains came in to get it at least completely dried in. So we're at that stage. The other house, they've still got to dig the beams and put in the cables. It's called a post-tension foundation. So we haven't gotten off the ground there because of all the rains. It's got to be dry enough to dig those trenches.
Oh man. Yeah, so I'm glad I got you on. We've been playing tag a little bit, but I know that this was kind of your topic that you kind of want to touch on. I mean, I think this is near and dear to your heart, but it's kind of getting into the game and getting off the sidelines and not waiting for the right time in the market. So like for yourself, right, you've kind of adapted and figured out a way how to make things work in this market. So why don't you kind of touch on that a little bit about thinking about how many people do you see sitting on the sidelines right now?
Yeah, the reason I came up with this topic, well, I think it's accumulation over years of conversation. My background being in the real estate sales market for 12 years. I recently sold that business, but I remember hearing all the conversations over and over and over again that, oh, it's not the right time. I'm going to wait till prices come down. And heard that consistently for 12 years. And the people that say that and don't get into the market, they've missed some of the biggest, well, just recently, some of the biggest appreciation. And I'm thinking back to the years when I started my build to rent model was in the late stages of 2019, we began construction. And so thinking back then, we're in the dead middle of construction when the entire economy shuts down March of 2020. Now think how scary that was. And I'll admit, man, I was scared. I had two constructions going at that moment, and none of us for a few weeks at least knew what was going to happen. And now in hindsight, I look back and now I wished I had 10 of them going to have gotten that benefit of all the appreciation and all the growth. And I honestly, I it just bothers me, and I grieve over people saying I'm waiting for this magical perfect time to buy my first rental. I was in a meeting, this was at the Zuber event last year, sitting at a table, and I remember Dion was actually at the table, and he said, and we had this guy there that was talking about watching and wanting, supposedly wanting to buy his first rental. And he shared he's been looking for 7 years. So that would have put him back in. He started looking around 2015-ish time. And I remember looking at him and trying not to show the expression of, you missed it, man. Why are you not in? You missed some phenomenal opportunities. And but trying to get people to understand that I, and maybe some comments will be made, I don't know, from you and your thinking too of what you've heard. I think many of them think that they're looking for this home run on their first purchase. And what we all know, the chances of that are very slim. The big home run, if you want to call theirs a home run, is getting on base the first. I'm using the baseball analogies, but just getting on base making a single or getting on, getting a walk and getting on base, the learning curve is the home run in that first purchase. There's the statistics show there's 45% of people say they want to own investment property. And you know how many actually do? It's 7% or less. So all these people are saying they want to get in, but I think they're wanting perfect timing of some magical perfect time or perfect home run. But I think it's more of fear and maybe just an excuse. It gives them an excuse not to get in. What's your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. When I was on Zuber's channel, when I got interviewed, I think that was the one thing I kind of told him. I know you're probably not gonna like this. Where I'm a little bit different from, he's always talking about finding a good deal, finding knowing your yield, all these things. Like you said, I think in the beginning, it's so challenging to find that home run deal. And especially when you're newer, you may not have the tools or connections to find a home run deal, because as you start getting in this game, you start realizing that there's people that bring you these good deals, or you have different lenders that you can work with, or different, or working with a property manager for so many years allows you to make these deals better because maybe you're not paying the 10% anymore, or maybe you're getting a discount off of management fees. So, like you're saying, getting in the game allows you to build these relationships. But in the beginning, you're probably paying a premium for everything, right? Your lending, your insurance, your property management, all of these costs are probably you're paying it at the top because you might only have one property, right? This might be your first property, right? So it makes the deals harder to number out, right? So I think, like you're saying, that's why getting in the game allows you to learn, but you're also building these relationships to where down the road it's going to allow these deals that come across your table to look possibly better because you can kind of work with the numbers as far as maybe your insurance costs are cutting, or you're able to cut back on your property management fees. So, like you're saying, I think that's the one thing where, but I know Zuber's sticking to his guns because that's kind of his, I guess, message to people, right?
And I'm there with you. I think I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it because I want to help people. The home run is getting the first one and the learning. That's the home run. You want to get a just a fair little cash flow. Maybe it's like I said, getting on base or getting that single. That's important, but the home run is the learning curve. Then you have, I call it eyes to see, because you've learned it. When we think about learning in school, we can only learn so much with third hand learning or second hand learning, somebody telling us here's what to do. Where we gain the most knowledge and wisdom is firsthand learning. And so you're always trying to work with somebody, getting them to cross that line to get the firsthand learning. Then they understand the whys of all the things you're looking at. They have maybe not all of it because it takes many properties. You're learning all the time. We're learning all the time. What I know today versus what I knew even in 21 is significantly different. Listening to YouTube University of all these great guys that are further ahead of all of us. I've been in the real estate industry for years and finance, and I've still, I don't know what to equate it to, double, triple my learning in the last 2 or 3 years from others that are further ahead. One of the things that I do now is I have a quarterly meeting and it's actually coming up. I was working with him right this week, scheduling the time to get together for lunch. And he's fully retired. He owns close to 100 doors, does very well, and I'm gaining that experience from him, and I'll throw out ideas to him, and I'm still getting that experience, but he's actually learning some things from me of my experience. We're trading information, as we're all on this growth journey. And I'm trying to get people to get into the game because we all know that timing the market is not the nature of this. Where the magic happens of the great financial returns is time in the market. It's that seasoning of your portfolio. First stage maybe is in that 5 years, then it's the 10 years. And we talk to the guys that are 20 and 30 years. And Zuber interviewed that guy. What was he? He had been in the business since the 70s. And I personally wrote him a message and just appreciated his knowledge and just thinking, wow, what is that like to be, what was that, 50 years, almost 50 years in the market? Can you imagine what that will be? And so we're all learning, and to be able to jump over this hard imaginary line of buying your first one and helping somebody get across that line.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think like, even, we keep talking about getting in the game, but then I also like to the sports reference. We always talk about sports, but like even they talk about you can't. We can get into politics later, but even like the election, right? You're kind of like I felt like one side was playing to win, and the other side was playing not to lose, right?
Yes,
And that's
yes,
the same thing with kind of talking about getting in the game for real estate, right? It's kind of yeah, you can be in the game, but like if you're in the batter's box and you're not going to take a swing, or you're not going to put the swing at a pitch, it's a hard way to win, right? You got to get on base to give yourself opportunities to score. And like you're saying, sometimes you might get a home run deal, and it's easier to score, but you have to put yourself in position to score. And I think that's the one thing. So Zuber guys talk about how there's people in the parking lot making noise, and then there's the fans sitting in the stand making noise, and then there is people in the game, but there's also like one step further you got to go after that, right? So getting in the game is important, but
right.
sometimes, like you're saying, some people are getting this, they're waiting for the right time, or they're analyzing a lot of things too much, and it's they're in the game, but they're not really playing to win in a sense, I guess. I think that's that next step. Like you're saying, you're trying to figure out a way to help people take that next step and actually, and and like you said, sometimes you're gonna strike out, sometimes you're gonna
Yeah.
fumble, sometimes you're gonna have mistakes, but you gotta be playing to win in a sense.
And if we look at all the people, and not just in real estate, but in life, the most successful people in life probably have failed the most. We learn from mistakes, and you're going to make a mistake. Mark, you and I have made mistakes. Little ones, they're not huge, but we've made little mistakes. I'm like, okay, that doesn't work. But that's part of the home run, is the first-hand learning by willing to take that little risk of buying your first one. And I do think it's a small risk. I do. And there's very smaller downside. Hey, how's it going?
So
Yeah, like messing up his times, firefighter that can't read, I guess.
evidently, I had down as 10:30 my time.
What, I don't know, 10:30 Eastern.
It's
I don't
at
know.
10:30
Yeah,
Eastern.
Yeah, man. But I don't know if have you been
my
on
bad.
with Brandon? So Brandon Ike's in school
Yeah, I
also.
think
He's in, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
But
Or yeah.
what I was saying was, it's getting into the game takes a small amount of risk. But if there weren't risks, everybody would be in it. We're doing this. We are the 7% that are willing to cross that line. It's a small risk. It is a little scary the first time, but as you grow one door at a time, one purchase at a time, it gets to where you see it better. And you're also then you're accumulating time in the market with your portfolio, every purchase you make, it's getting better each year, and you can pull the trigger. But it's that first one for every one of us. If we were all honest, it was nerve-wracking the first one. Because you just don't know what you don't know. And you say, I'm willing to jump into this and say, yeah, I don't know everything, but I'm going to learn it as it goes, and I'm going to be so much better a year from now. And then you look back and you think, oh, after that first purchase, what was I so scared of? Man, I got to go out and buy more.
Yeah, so we got Max, Invest to Wealth, joining us in the comments. So good morning, fellas. But you, Ike, I don't know. I talk about it quite a bit, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think being a first responder has kind of prepared me, I guess, maybe for investing or real estate in the sense where you're not gonna know all the answers. You're not gonna know what's behind that door, I guess, in a sense. And it's kind of like, yeah, you go in with some knowledge and some training, but at the end of the day, a lot of times you got to just figure it out in a sense. And I don't know, that's what I kind of feel has helped me prepare for this. But what about you?
Yeah, I don't know. My experience, I've been a little bit public about it, is like I did a lot of analysis paralysis for years. And then finally I was just like, hey, I gotta do something. So popped in and it went a lot better than I expected. And yeah, now I'm in that aspect of like trying to do a lot more because I'm like, hey, it's not as hard. And then you run into different speed bumps when you start doing more like that. But um, yeah, I definitely had the analysis paralysis for quite a while. And finally, I was just like, hey, the house hack duplex that I got, I was like, hey, at least this way my mortgage payment won't be that much more than the rent I'm paying. And then once I got a tenant in there and they started paying that mortgage payment, like that's when a lot of stuff clicked and it was like, okay, it's not just some scam or pyramid scheme I'm getting into again. This is actually legit.
But what would you say, like when you're saying analysis paralysis, is it analysis paralysis because in a sense like you're scared or there are so many questions, or analysis paralysis from like you're looking for a home run deal?
Um, for me, it was probably more, I was like, what do I not know? What's going to cost more? If I get in there and then I have to evict a tenant and pay for all that and then rehab the place and fix all that up. Like I'm just looking at it as like there's thousands of dollars down the drain that I don't have. Um, and then that was probably the biggest thing for me is like afraid of getting something that was costing me money every month and then having to pay for someone to kick them out or something like that. That was probably my biggest fear. Um, but now, there's other things like paying utilities and things like that on vacant buildings that I'm just like, hey, 10 times rather have someone in there paying bills and paying rent than not. So
Yeah, and I don't know if you probably didn't hear what me and Brandon were talking about in the beginning, but like I think, like we were saying, getting in the game just allows you more opportunities to make deals work out better down the road. So
yeah,
like Brandon has pivoted, right? He's doing this build to rent model. So now he's figured out something, and with his connections, that's allowing him to strive and succeed in this market. Do you find that like for yourself to getting in it now has brought you these different connections and on figuring out how to make deals maybe work out a little bit better?
yeah, definitely a lot better at like making deals. I still don't have like a long time of actually doing stuff, so some of that stuff's still a little bit limited for me. Like I don't really have enough equity in the first property I bought to do anything with that. Um, but like I just closed last month. Uh, Basically, I had a house that I'm rehabbing and posted something on our local Facebook page. I got a really good private loan from somebody that they're like, hey, it wasn't a no questions asked, but it was kind of a no questions asked. They were like, we want our name on or we're putting a lien on the property, things like that. But other than that, they're kind of like, I was like, hey, here's what I'm estimating the after repair value will be. Here's what I'm estimating the costs are going to be. And they didn't ask any questions on that. They're like, yep, looks good. Um, Closed it. They sent me the check and I'm running from there. And it was a lot better rate, but it was also a really simple deal versus like the first burr I did where I was paying an insane rate on it. And then as far as getting the rehab costs covered, things like that, I had to jump through a lot of loopholes. So it's definitely a lot easier this time around. And I'm hoping as I keep going forward, that'll continue. And it should, but we'll see what happens. So
How many
but
years
they
have you
know
been on? How many years do you own? Have you owned the real estate now?
about 2.5, almost 3. So um yeah. But there again, like they've seen me, the people that gave me the loan, they've seen me. I've been going to the local RIA meetup. I've been talking with people, things like that for like I've known them for well over a year and a half. So they know this isn't my first deal. They know that I'm somewhat cautious on some things. Like I've had talks with them before. So it wasn't like they just saw my Facebook post and they're like, oh yeah, here's money. It was definitely like a little bit of a relationship already there.
Yeah.
Um, and that helped a lot.
He's
So
very introverted too. That's why.
hey, I still talk to people, so it takes a lot of effort. That's it.
Uh, so Brandon, how's I mean, I know school you're doing a lot of things. How's your guys meetups going? Your
It's we've had now two. Last one it was just two of us. Several people were out of town or had something going on, so we should do another one. I was thinking about that even within the last week. It's going to be coming, we've got Veterans Day next Monday because we're doing them on Mondays. Um, the week after that's probably when we're going to do it. That would be the third Monday. So I probably need to get that messaging out and see how many are gonna be able to make it. I will say the first one we had 6 or 7 of us. It actually, I took some learning from it myself. There was a guy there that was had been doing Section 8, and he was sharing some ideas, and it's a progression of thought. I've listened to Dion talks a lot about it. So does uh, Matt, lumberjack landlord. And so I've been more and more open to it. And I actually finally made the decision to um, get a couple of mine ready to use. Ours is called Housing Authority, the Housing Authority, and get those approved and keep a portion of my portfolio with the Section 8. And I'm actually already in conversations with the director. I'll be building another. I hadn't got it zoned or approved yet. Either it's going to be a 3 or 4 plex here in the next 2 years and almost get it pre-approved ahead of time so that we have tenants ready to go when I'm finished with it. Looking at the numbers, I think that they're fair rents in our area, and it sure be nice to build these how I want to build them and already have ready tenants to go at numbers that I know work. So that's something I learned from our meetup, or had, I guess, confirmed again. I wouldn't say learned, but I did learn some things, but it was just further um, validation of other conversations.
So what about you, Ike? Do you feel like you're getting a lot of traction with coworkers, like fire guys that you work with and trying to get them off the sidelines and do things differently?
No, no, I
Uh,
don't. But I mean, like I'm at the beginning stages of a lot of things. So like I drive the junkiest car in the parking lot. I like the one that's looking at real estate all the time, when we're on our down hours and things like that. No, I don't have a lot of traction. But I mean, there's been some conversations and I like it. I'm passionate about it, but um, I get a lot of people tell me how to do it, which I always find is really funny. So, um, but like one of the guys I work with in my station, he's actually a part-time real estate agent, and he's always like, "Yeah, the investing's good." And I'm like, "So like, what are you doing with investing?" And he's like, "Well, I've never really had the cash for it." And I'm like, it's all right, man. But
you make a
that's
great
what
point, and I mean, I know, kind of in our community, it's a little bit, the fake gurus and things like that. But I also kind of see why sometimes people, not that they're trying to be flashy, but that they, drive a certain vehicle or dress a certain way, like Ike is mentioning, right? A lot of us, yeah, when it doesn't matter to us as much anymore, right? So it's like, I'd
Yeah.
rather have a paid off vehicle and things like that. But then people that you're trying to help get off the sidelines, sometimes you're looking at you like, well, you're driving this, or you're, spending all your time looking at real estate or things like that, right? So it's also kind of like I can kind of see why sometimes these coaches or gurus kind of, not that they're trying to be flashy, but they also are trying to show you this image where, see, if you do this, then you can afford this or something like this. I kind of see it a little bit now because, like you're saying, it is hard to get guys started sometimes when they're looking at me like, oh, you're spending all your time like doing these Zoom calls and doing all these things, and so they don't realize that it's actually fun for me, right? But so
Right.
that's kind of the struggle, I think, too.
I mean, that's my thing. I'd rather watch, you know, I'd rather go through like look at listings and calculate some numbers and things like that versus, watch another TV show or something like that in the evening that I've seen 4 or 5 times, bits and pieces of. So, um, but it's not for everybody, is what it is. So, there are a couple I've learned guys on my department that like are pretty big in the local real estate market as far as investments. And one guy I actually ran into at a meetup, so that was kind of cool. And then a couple other guys like building relationships with, but for the most part, with the guys I'm working with day in day out, they're a little bit suspect about it. So
And the conversations are just different, right? Like it's
yeah.
just, yeah, yeah. That's the
Hey,
one thing I enjoy. Yeah, I
Brandon,
think
I'm just curious on that meetup you were talking about. Do you go to like other meetups in the area, or is that like the first kind of thing you're doing, or what's going
Where
on with
the
that?
Yeah, where the idea came, and I think I was the maybe unless there were people before me, I was the first one that brought that to the school that I saw. I wanted it more for myself. I went to two other meetups, if you want to call it that, or investor meetings. And
Yep.
I'll be honest, I sat there and I thought, this is Slick Willie trying to sell me something. And they seemed like used car salesmen, the organizers trying to make money for themselves, and not really, the people that were there were not the kind of people that I was doing that the with the business that I was doing, and I just didn't see
Yeah.
the value there. And so that's why I made that suggestion for the Dallas Fort Worth area and this group, because I think we all are very common. We might be going different path at it, but still doing this buy and hold type of model. It could be done through a BRRRR, it could be done through a house hack, it could be done with my build to rent model, or just straight buying on the resale side. But we all have a very common base thread. And that's what I wanted to build as a group there, because the two other groups I went to one time, it was not what I was expecting. Let me just say it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I found that my area there's a guy that I think means well, and he runs one of the biggest meetups. But there's a lot of slick, like he's got a coaching program he's recruiting people into all the time, and stuff up from there. And because it's the biggest one in the area, I still go quite often. But it's it's definitely a mixed match of people that you're like, hey, I don't really want to buy more programs or more processes from you. So, and then there's the local RIA that they got two new guys that kind of took it over a couple of years ago, and they're actually pretty legit. And so it's kind of growing. It's starting to grow. But um, as far as like the school community, I actually just met up with a guy on Monday for beers that he saw my interview with Zuber, and he's not in the school community, but he reached out and he's like, "Hey, I've followed Zuber for quite a while and saw your interview. Like, we should connect." So that was kind of cool. But that's the only local person I've met that knows Zuber or the one rental at a time type thing. So
Now I
why
know
is he not in
maybe
school?
I don't know why he's got a pretty good job. Like we were talking, and he's done one property that's doing really well, and then he's like, my wife won't let me do another house hack, and so I think he just needs a push to go and do another one because with what he was talking about. He's definitely got the money to do it, but he's just a little bit apprehensive, it sounds like. So
Yeah, I've been preaching it even and I was telling Mark we have a breakfast with a bunch of men on Friday mornings, and it's just part of my life for the last 8 years. And I've gotten one of those guys to buy his first duplex, and they're working on it. But I think it's interesting. I watch people. Um, I think what I want to encourage people to do is pick a path and really focus on it. I see a lot of people, they're always jumping around in different paths and they don't stay on one path for a long time to become a true expert at it, be it buying wholesale properties, buying pre-foreclosures, just buying stuff off the MLS. They're always jumping around versus staying in one lane if for
yeah,
the way you're going to do it and really master that one lane. I see people trying to do basically, if you want to call it jack of all trades and master of none, they're trying to be, if you want to call it at best average at looking at something because they're looking at three or four or five different paths at it. You need to find one, master it, build that model out, then later look at maybe a second path because you've already now mastered one. And I see that even in some of when I went to the Zuber event, I was talking to people and I noticed that there's just a few. The group that's doing the best are the ones that are very singularly focused.
yeah,
Yeah, I think so. I think I relate a lot to Dion's message and his strategy. And he always jokes about it, but I think that's part of the being late. So he says lazy, but it's also being focused in one thing in a sense, right? And that's kind of, yeah, you're lazy because I don't want to learn all these other new strategies or things because the one I'm already doing, it does take a lot of work to become proficient at it. And I think like Brandon, like you mentioned, right? There's a lot of people out there, they get one property and they're like, okay, I'm ready to do something else. I'm gonna go do short-term rentals now. I'm gonna do midterm rentals. And it's like, wait, you got one, and that's great. That's a great start. But let's try to build something here before we start focusing on other areas. And I think, it's a great point. So sometimes, like I tell people, I think being lazy is somewhat of a superpower in a sense because you're lazy, but you're actually becoming super proficient and efficient in this area because you don't want to do extra work. So you become very strong at what you're doing. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
I think I heard it. Well, I heard an interview. I don't remember when it was recorded because I'm listening to videos. I'm listening to videos when I drive. Y'all, I listen to videos even in the shower. I'll play some streaming, but I love learning. And there was an interview, I believe it was Zuber, and this he was interviewing somebody that had gotten their very first house, and now he wanted to go into multifamily and all these different things. And Michael was giving him advice, hey, let's stay with what you know at the moment, do several of those, really understand that and stay focused before immediately jumping into a little bit different. It is the same but different. From a single buying single family homes is different than you buying a duplex. There is a little differences in the nuances. Then going from two to four, there's a little different nuance. Going from 4 to 8, he talks about that. It's a different nuance. Get your expertise before you jumping into a whole nother other thing that has potential to, you just don't have quite the experience yet. But I see that in life. I see that with people with careers. They're jumping around, always trying to look for the next best deal.
yeah,
Kid, and I'm not pointing fingers. I remember myself being that. I'm not saying that it's hard. it's staying focused on one thing until you master it.
Absolutely. And we got Hugo from Stay Winning stopping by. Oh, we got Trey Better Harrison. But Hugo says Trump 2024. So that was actually the kind of direction I was going to head in. So, now that the election is over and we know who's going to be in office the next 4 years, like how do you think this is going to affect those people that were waiting on the sidelines? Like what should they be maybe thinking about, or what should they be preparing for, or is it going to be harder to jump in the game? What are you guys thinking?
I think, well, I think that the Trump tax code will be extended. I think cost segregation, which is being phased out right now, I think what is it at? The cost segregation is really not worth it right now at 40%. I see that going back to 100%. So we're going to see investors, if that cost segregation comes back, that tax deduction, you're going to see investors coming back in. That alone is a big one that eliminates a lot of income tax. I think we know that he's going to work on inflation. If he's working on energy, energy is throughout every product there is. And so we're going to see prices come down, which then we're going to see lower interest rates over time. If the inflation under his administration was well below 2%, we saw rates lower. That would be the natural conclusion. If we get well below 2% again, because he's focusing on energy, we're going to see rates coming back down. And I think the environment, you're hearing my political leanings, but I felt like I've been swimming upriver for 4 years. I think it will be a good economic environment. And now there'll be more activity and we'll be competing. Let me just say we'll be competing more, but I think the environment will be a good environment.
What about you, Ike?
I don't know. I'm not a huge Trump fan. Um,
What?
I think you see my Twitter post. I think we'll just probably we're headed towards more of the same. I think Trump will probably do some good things with the tax. Like he does, he definitely does lean that aspect of like, hey, less taxes makes more businesses grow, better economy. But at the same time, like he was the one that started the inflation. Like there's not really good way to argue around that with all the money that his administration threw at COVID. So I I think it'll be really interesting to see how he uses people in his administration. If he gets people like Musk and Kennedy to go in there and start doing what they said on the campaign trail that they're going to do, I think we could see some really big improvements. But if he does kind of what he did last time of goes in there, puts a lot of the normal establishment people in the same positions, I don't see things improving a whole lot. So I'm guessing that in the next couple of years are still going to be a lot more of a stagnant economy. Um, Hopefully it doesn't go off a cliff, but at the same time, like we're going to definitely have one party working towards ruining everything that he's doing, um, despite what's in the best interests of their people. So I think that aspect will come again really hard, and it'll be interesting to see how he combats that. So I'm hoping for the best, but I'm not expecting a lot. So
Well, I mean, if it's a clean sweep, it's going to be a little bit more favorable for Trump this time. If we
possibly,
if
I'm
we take the House, the Senate, and it's going to be a little bit easier for him to push things through.
sort of if you actually decide to push things through. I don't know. I'm not an old person, but I do remember when Bush won, and I think the first term he won, they got control of the Senate, control of the House, and all of a sudden everybody was like, "Hey, conservatives win, like everything's going to be amazing." And Bush kind of ended up being somebody that got us in a lot of bad places and promoted a lot of government. The one sad thing I think through this whole campaign was we had two people saying, "Hey, we're from the government. We're going to save you," and that used to be something that nobody actually thought was a good thing. But Trump was campaigning on saying, "Hey, you elect me, I'm going to save you." Kamala was campaigning on, hey, if you elect me, I'm going to save you. So we got two people that were both going at it with like big government's the answer. So we ended up with somebody that
Wait,
still
wait,
thinks
wait,
big
wait,
government's the
wait,
answer.
wait, wait. Let me, I think it's a little bit different in that Trump may be saying, I'm gonna come and save you by getting government out of your personal business in a sense, right? Like that's why like Musk wants to um the government efficiency and cut, all these government positions. So it's kind of like, yeah, I want to come and help you, but my help is going to be that I'm taking these people out of your life in a sense. So it's like I'm going to get these restrictions and regulations and make life a little bit more. I mean, it's still up to you to do the work, but I'm
Yeah.
going to try to make these situations easier for you to maneuver in, right? I don't. That's the way I'm looking at it. As far as like you're saying, they're both coming to say,
It,
I'm coming to help you.
and if he goes that route, great. But one thing that never, like, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. Like, if it gets too far, but one thing that never got discussed in the uh, previous elections was like, hey, what happened to holding Trump accountable for COVID? Because he was in charge. And that never got brought up. That never really got campaigned against. Never really got discussed because DeSantis and some of those other people, like they still knew that they owed him a bit for stuff. So they never really went hard after him for saying, hey, you were in charge when COVID happened. You were in charge when government shut down. Government kept people in their homes. Government did all this stuff. So um, at the
Well, I
end of the day,
push.
there,
Those
there
weren't
wasn't a lot of
from the
responsibility
national
for that.
government.
So
That was state government. State governments kept you at home. That was not a never a national policy at all. It was every state made that choice.
every state made that
That
choice.
was from the state. The government, national government, never once said you have to stay at home. Those were state government policies. Those were not national.
Okay,
It was
well,
depending on which
I,
state you were in.
Well, yeah.
I
So that's
and
why
I
like
think
the
that
We
part
thing.
we
was
didn't
good,
stay
but
at home for 2 weeks and we were done. That was the state of Texas.
I just I think if we'd had a strong leader at the helm then, who wasn't putting people at the wrong places like the Department of Health and things like that, and promoting them and giving them Congressional Medal of Honors and things like that, I think we'd be better off. And the frustration for me is the fact that that never really got brought up. We could just kind of swept that under the rug, and then conservatives were like, "Hey, Trump's going to be the savior again." And like to me, the best times we've had in our history is when we've had a Democratic president and a conservative Congress, because then they actually fight with each other and they actually kind of be like, "Hey, this is what this person's doing, or this is what one side's doing." Like when there's actual like two tensions between the two sides. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with if they do a clean sweep, which it looks like they're going to. But um, I'm not optimistic.
So
I guess
this
that's
would,
where I'm going with
yeah.
it.
So this would be so Trade Better has a great question, but shoot, what was my question? Anyways, I'll try to think about it. But Harrison says, Ike, would you say it was because Trump was running on the information he had as well?
Well, that's his job.
Well, so that's kind of I think that kind of brings me back to now. So like you're saying, um, how they didn't bring this up as much during the campaigns. Is it because you think maybe then it would kind of shine light on Fauci and his information and how much hand he had involved in leading Trump into these decisions and supposedly being his right hand man on this matter? So it would have put Fauci's, I guess, maybe faults or lies, if you want to say, to the forefront if they were to kind of bring this issue up more, right? So was Trump
Yeah,
acting on the information by his advisors that he was supposed to be in his corner or his backing? And was he making these decisions based on the information that they were giving him?
absolutely. But his job as the CEO of the country, the president, is to put people in place so that he gets good information. And I think he not only messed up on that, but I think he failed really, really miserably. So
So I think that was the struggle in his first term, right? Because you're almost
yeah,
like getting a person who's never been in politics off the street.
that's not true though. He paints that photo like you don't build buildings, especially in New York, without being very political.
Well, yeah, being political, but not being in holding a political office to where like you're saying you're gonna take a guy straight off the street and put him into the highest position, and now he has to figure out how to run the country. And like you're saying, he has these advisors that he's probably never met half of these people, and he's just going
Yeah,
off of the word like, hey, this guy's supposed to be good in this guy's, and so he's building his team, and come to find out maybe they're not supporting him or they don't have the best interest. And I think
yeah.
that's gonna be critical for like, and yeah, he may not come through on a lot of these things that he said, right? But I think that is why you're looking at the team that he's building now. And I think that's why it was such a red wave, where it's more Musk, Kennedy, Tulsi, Vivek,
Yeah.
right? I think that is more why we're seeing the results that we are seeing.
Well,
And
Susan
I'll say
Wiles,
for all the negative stuff I've said, like the fact that Musk was in his corner, the way Musk was in his corner kind of made me cautiously optimistic. And then the
Yeah.
way Kennedy came over, that was a big plus side to me for Trump. And if he actually follows through on some of the stuff he says and puts those guys in positions that they can help, that'll be a big bonus, I think. And that would change my mind. But if he does what he did in the last administration, um, I don't I don't think things are going to get a lot better. So that's
yeah, I
just
would
my two
say.
cents.
See, my opinion is very opposite. I think, and I said it even back then. I grew up with Reagan. I'm older, and I thought he governed better than Reagan did, and everybody. And I think Reagan was phenomenal. He was one of the few politicians that did what he said he was going to do. I do think he had some weasels in his cabinet and around him, and he figured that out and he fired a bunch of them. I think this time he's going to have more people that are not trying to destroy him and trying to thwart his policies. His cabinet's going to be better. I don't think Elon Musk is going to be in the cabinet. I think but he'll be some type of advisor. That Susan Wiles is now going to be his chief of staff. She is phenomenal expert, and she's already been named the chief of staff. I think he's getting an even way better. He's going to have a way better cabinet and less people trying to thwart what he's doing. He's learned a lot because I don't think he was experienced in the political game. He believed people's word and realized they were lying to him to get into that position. I think he's going to be totally different this time. I feel like he did most of what he did. And when he left office, inflation was 1.6%. That is when he left office, January 20th, 2020, inflation was 1.6%. It didn't change till 4 months later in April is when the inflation exploded with that third final package, which the Republicans opposed. That third package. They said we are already coming out, and they opposed it. They all voted it down. The Democrats had the power, and they approved it, and that's where the inflation exploded. I remember it like it was yesterday. These are the dates that this is when it happened. He was already out of office when inflation exploded. He did what he said he was going to do, and I think that's what makes him is unusual. He's not a politician. Everybody knows what he believes, good or bad. They at least know what he's saying. Though and let me tell you, I don't listen to him a whole lot because it just drives me crazy. I'll just be honest, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like what happened, and his policies were more conservative than Reagan.
Yeah. I do remember my question now, Ike. So you mentioned that you remember or realize that seems like when Democrats held up the presidency, things were better or whatnot in history, I guess. Would you say that that's the same Democratic Party though now? Like it seems like I think that's why like there's such a shift. You know, like you're seeing Tulsi, Kennedy, Elon. These are all Rogan. These are all people that were Democrats before or they've been leaning that way. Would you say that the party is still the same?
Well, just to be clear, my point was not, hey, Democrat president is better. My
Yeah,
point
yeah, yeah.
is when we have one party in charge of one part of government and the other party in charge of a different part of government, the two sides competing with each other and holding each other in check, I think is ideal,
Yeah,
versus a clean sweep.
yeah.
But no, I think, I don't know. For me personally, I feel like it is kind of, I think Obama represents a lot of what the DNC is still today. I think he was promoting a lot of that back in '08, but I don't think that they were willing or able to be as public about it back then as they are today. So I think they kind of have gone even further down an interesting path. I don't think it's a great path, but I don't think the people at the top would have been opposed to anything going on today back in 2008. Now, you go back to Clinton, and like, I don't really remember Clinton being president, but when I see some of the stuff that he talks about and does today, I'm like, if he ran today as a Republican without the name Clinton, like, I think people would have elected him because he's a likable guy and kind of conservative on some stuff. But things change, winds change, and I think Clintons, aren't great people, but I just I hope for the best. Like I do hope that you're right on all these things, and I hope he gets the right people involved around him. Um, but again, I'm just a little bit pessimistic. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like Brandon said, I mean, when Trump talks to a lot of people, that's the thing, right? Is sometimes he just says crazy shit. Like even
yeah,
like Rogan said,
and
he goes, dude, you say crazy shit all the time.
I'll give him this. Like I'm the way he campaigned with going and talking, he was on all sorts. Like I watched a lot of videos on YouTube, not just real estate related, and he was on all sorts of podcasts. And you have to give him credit for that. Like he was going in with people that did not like him and talking to him for hours. And that takes some guts, and that takes somebody that actually believes in what they're doing. So I'll give him that. Um, he
I would say
he worked hard to get this.
he's appealed way more to the working class.
Oh, for sure.
Even some of and I remember this back in 16, he was appealing to a lot of the union group because he was a more populist. What he was saying was hitting them where they live. And I think this time, he's really appealing to that working class group. Even though he's a billionaire, he connects
Yeah.
with the working class.
I
I
want to
think
say
I think
what's
he was
up to.
smart.
Hey, hold on. Let me give a shout out to Daryl, janitor on fire, who's here. Jen, who's always making trouble. Buzztune, he must have just woke up. But Hugo, if you are still there, I don't know how much longer we're gonna be on, but I sent you a Zoom link if you want to hop on real quick. But Ike, before you follow up with what you were saying, Trade Better did have a great question. He says, he was shocked that Rogan backed him. I think that was huge. But he says, Ike, do you think Bernie has a potential position in the cabinet, and would he take it?
Oh, I would hope not, because where I come from is a libertarian, like almost anti-government perspective. So I think the more people that get into the government with saying, "Hey, we're able to help you because we're part of the government," the worse off we are. And I think that's what Bernie promotes. So Bernie points out a lot of flaws in the system, which is why I think a lot of people, especially in my age group, like him because he actually says some of the stuff that other people won't about how corrupt it is and how managed it is against certain people. But at the end of the day, he's still one of those that believes that government helps you. And if that's like Brandon was saying, like if Trump puts the people in charge and gets the government out of the way that he's kind of teased and kind of campaigned on, then things will be great. but he's got a 4-year record. He gave a congressional medal of honor to Fauci at the end of his presidency. Like I don't think he was the best choice, but we'll see what happens.
Well, Ike, you said something, and I agree with you. I was talking to my kids literally two mornings ago. The brilliance of the founders in the way they wrote the Constitution is they designed it where there would not be massive swings either way,
Yeah,
that there's enough checks and balances in the system that even if it's one party rule, there's still enough checks and balances. It could never massively swing one way or the other. It was designed and written so brilliantly that, yes, there would be incremental changes, but never big, sweeping mob rule kind of changes. And that's what I
yeah.
love about our representative republic is it's written to prevent mob rule.
So this kind of leads me to my next or the next question too, is because I don't know if you guys seen the three amigos kind of talking about now that the election is over, what are people going to do? And in some of the comments, I was chatting with people in the comments, but I said I think I think there's going to be pain, discomfort, like Elon Musk saying, if we're going to try bring manufacturing back home, if we are going to put some tariffs, so people do have to realize that. So, but I think this 4 years is going to be a little bit of that kind of struggle and bringing things back to America. So I think 2028 is going to be critical. And that's why Max has a question. How does everyone feel about JD Vance?
I'm a little bit out on a limb on him because I think he's got a suspect past coming from Silicon Valley and some of that sort of stuff. I did see a couple of his interviews, and he very articulate, and some of the stuff he says like makes a lot of sense. So I think he was a good choice for Trump. I think that was a really brilliant move for him to bring him on because he kind of tempered some of Trump's out there sayings, things like that. So,
I
but yeah,
think
I'm guessing it's going to be JD Vance and Newsom 2028. So we'll see what happens.
listening to the one debate that he had, and I didn't listen to all of it. I'll listen to a good portion of it. I became a bigger fan of his. I do agree with you. I think he is a good balance to Trump. Still fiery in his beliefs, and I agree with what he's saying, but he says it in a way that I like better. I think he's very articulate, but he's also very relatable. And I think he's going to be my hope is he's going to be the best vice president we've seen in our lifetime. And I think there is a strong potential for that he will be the best one we've seen in our lifetime. The only other, um, going backwards in my head, the last vice president to win the presidency was George H. Bush in 88. I think he has that potential. And, you know, I will say on the manufacturing, it's already started to happen. Saw on Fox Business this morning, was that shoe company Madden has just announced after the election that they're going to be moving some of their manufacturing back to the US from China. They announced that yesterday or this morning.
What about Crocs? Are they going to start making Crocs in the US?
I don't know.
No, I wish I was on Restream today because there's so many good comments that I would love to post. So hold on, let me try to get to some of these. Um, Jen says, while I think Republicans can do some good things for the country this time around, I can't stand the guy. And how do you get over that fact? That is definitely um a big issue, right? That is what you're gonna hear quite a bit. Darrow Postal Nerd says The Art of the Deal is a great book. I highly recommend it. He says, I disagree with Bernie about 90% of the time, but I fully respect him because he's so committed to his values and he never wavers. Yeah. Um, and Postal Nerd says, I was telling someone just yesterday about the genius of the founding fathers and how they said everything up there. Their only flaw was that they did was slavery. Other than that, they nailed it. Yeah.
I
Um,
would I would say the only one other thing that I wish they would have had, and they didn't think about it because they were not in the mindset of career politicians, is term limits. I think that is one of the main things that I see they missed because in that culture at that moment, they were not career politicians. They
Yeah.
were coming for a smaller season of their life to serve, and then they were out. That is to me one of the main things that I saw they missed.
he has a trade better says he's telling Jen, this election made me think about the team more than the star. This election looks similar to the 1996 Bulls where Trump was like Michael Jordan. Uh, Not the GOAT, but a star player that could not carry the team to a championship win. Hmm. Yeah, I think like I said, I think Trump definitely the team that he built and the support is kind of what won people over. And I think
Yeah.
Rogan was huge. I
Yes.
think him doing that was I think when you see Trump in long form, you get a better idea of who he is. And I think Kamala, for whatever reason, avoiding it or being busy or whatnot, not doing it really hurt her. And I don't like you were saying, you watch JD Vance on a few things, and I was super impressed with him on Rogan. I think that
Yep.
was very impressive.
I
I
agree
think
with
I
you.
saw him on.
The
Go ahead.
assessment of his team around him this campaign, all of them, from his vice president selection to all his advisors around him, this is you're seeing his experience of what he's learned from his first term, I believe, and that you're seeing a much better quality group around him. And I'm excited for that.
And so there was, like I said, there was that great question or comments in the Three Amigos video they did. So we kind of touched on it, right? So like maybe some tariffs, some bringing manufacturing back here. There's going to be some uncomfortable times or some struggles. How do you think the public is going to react to that after all these promises, or like Ike is saying that all these things that Trump was saying is going to get done, but there's a good chance that we're going to face some struggles initially. So how's the public going to take that?
I don't know, to be honest. I think one of the things that came out of this election was Trump really used podcasts and small media
Mhm.
to his advantage. And Kamala never, she started hopping on at the end and it still didn't work out really for her. But I think there's an aspect of like election night, like I'm not watching TV. I was on YouTube watching PBB and some of the other people with their lives on elections. And I think we're kind of in a new era of smaller media. I think his first term, the big media really ganged up on him. And I think the second term that is coming around, I don't think they're going to have as much power as they did back then. And I think, I don't know, my sentiment, and I'm in the Midwest now, so it's a little bit different. But what I get with a lot of people is like, we all kind of know we've been riding a wave. If it's a bit of a stagnant economy for a bit, that's okay, um, as long as it improves in the future. So I think he's got a little bit of a leash this time to go at least a year, maybe 2 years. But
I know you said small media, but I was thinking, how much is the audience of Rogan? 3 million? Do I have that right? That's huge.
I
That's
don't know,
more than
but
most
yeah,
of these channels on cable nowadays or YouTube TV or whatever. That's a bigger audience than a lot of these cable political talk shows in the evenings.
Absolutely. I think the game has changed quite a bit. I mean, I think it's definitely um long form content was super helpful, like Ike was saying, I think. And you just get a better feel. Like even the debates, right? It's all like kind of scripted. They probably have an idea a lot of times what questions are going to be asked. And these long forms, like Rogan was saying, I just want to talk to Kamala and get an idea of who she is and know more about her. It's just have a conversation. And I think, that was super um uh, not the smartest decision on her part not to go on Rogan. I think at that point you got to swing for the fences. I think they should have seen. I mean, I don't know. To me, it was pretty obvious. No matter what the polls are saying, she was losing or she was behind. And at that point, it's kind of like, hey, we gotta take a swing here and go for it. And I think that's why, like, I don't think you were on. We were kind of talking about how you kind of got to play the game to win, right? And it felt like they were playing not to lose in a sense.
Yeah.
But I forgot you are from Seattle, right? Originally, or no?
No, I lived there for like 6 years,
Oh, okay.
five, six
I
years.
was gonna say that made more sense then.
No, I grew I grew up in the Midwest. So
Wait, what do you, Brandon? What do you?
Of course,
What
I've
do
got the Cowboys. They're going to lose for years.
Oh yeah, they have the
yeah.
high. They have the highest paid backup quarterback, or highest paid player in the league who's a backup.
I saw it coming when they did what they did with CeeDee Lamb and Dak. We have very little cap room. We have, I think he has put the Cowboys in a hole for multiple years to come. He did something deep it's going to take years to unwind.
If he had taken, what is it, Derrick Henry,
Yes.
that you guys would have a totally different season. And like I get that. I get big into fantasy football. I'm like I kind of skirted around Derrick Henry this year and regretting that because he was available. He said he was wanting to go to the Cowboys, if I remember right.
That's what I heard too.
Different season. Maybe something else. But
But
Yeah,
we lost a lot of our line too. We There was several in the offensive and defensive line that we lost this last year. It is not the same, not even close to the same team as last year. I mean, what they're
yeah,
dead last in the running game.
yeah. My Seahawks aren't doing good either though. So
yeah. Let's just
hired
not
a
talk.
coach and now we're probably not even gonna make the playoffs. So
Let's not talk about football already. I'm sick of it.
oh yeah, by the hat wait, nice hat, Mark.
Yeah. Oh, I did have a question on X. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have any. So now, do you guys think that we're gonna get the Washington Redskins football team name back? No,
No.
you don't think it's gonna come back? I think it is. I think that's gonna be a big middle finger to everyone. Kind of like
They're
all
still
this.
they're
What is
still
that?
located in DC. Like I don't think that area is gonna approve it. So
Did you
Mm,
see the voting results? Trump in DC only got 7% to Kamala's 93.
that is true. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's insane.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to talk about. There was a funny, I don't know, I think it was on TikTok or whatever, but there was some person complaining about the election, and he said, I'm gonna move out of the country, and I'm gonna move to Hawaii." And everybody's
All
like,
I
"Dude, what are you?"
all I'll say is yesterday I was ordering breakfast from McDonald's and that voice sounded real familiar.
What are you trying to say?
Maybe that's her first new job.
Yeah,
Hey, Brandon, I got a question for you. If you think rates are gonna go down and some of that stuff in the next 4 years, we'll just put it that way. Are you would you kind of extend yourself out right now with the higher rates, banking on
I am.
prices
Yeah,
going
let's
up?
get back to some investment talk. What
Yeah,
I'm thinking right now, I've got two constructions going right now, so we won't get to the 30 years till My guess is in that March to April timeframe. Right now, I've got a scenario at 7.5, but according to the current rate environment, it'd probably be closer to 8 on an investment property. That I've given enough margin room that it's going to cash flow even at 8. So even if I'm having to lock it in, come March at 8, I do anticipate the rates coming down because I believe we're going to see inflation come down because of what he's saying. Hitting energy affects every aspect of every product. If that really does happen, energy is I think the core component to inflation. And so I believe we will see that. And if rates, if inflation gets down below 2 again, so then what do they call it? I can't remember the term with the Fed, the rate where it's neutral. Sorry,
The
the
neutral
neutral
rate,
rate.
yeah.
The neutral rate is going to come down even lower. And so right now they've lowered it 75 basis points here in the last couple of months. If we're down below 2, the neutral rate goes down closer to 3, around 3. So I could see another 150, 200 basis points potential there. I know for that 10-year treasury, I watch it every day. It's on my bookmarks on the top, and I click on it a couple of times a day because I've got some loans out there. And so a good big regional broker that I talk to every week. I mean, the Mortgage Bankers Association's got it wrong for the last 2 years. They're always projecting so much lower than it ever did. So maybe it's just a wish and a hope. I don't have, I don't know. I believe it will, but we've been, the Mortgage Bankers Association's been wrong for a good 18 months now. They said I remember those projections because it's still on my computer. I purposely kept it. I kept a little clip of it. They were projecting the end of this year, we would be in the mid fives. That was their projection.
Yep.
Hugo says, yeah, true. Cheaper gas means cheaper groceries. You can see how grocery prices actually dropped in 2017. Oh yeah, but Brandon, before we wrap things up, or we have some time. I don't know if you guys gotta go, but Mikey, who popped in, he said on Sunday's accountability Zoom, you had a great discussion about personal financial statements. So maybe you can kind of touch on that real quick and how you use it.
Okay. Yes, I did. I presented in the accountability group. We clipped that part because it was my personal information. And Jared asked, and I said, yes, I'd prefer that just to the group that was listening in that day to see it, because I deleted a lot of my social security numbers and all that, but it was very personal. I was bearing my soul of my personal financial statement and showing what it's gone from since 2019 to 20 end of this year, 2024. And the reason and the way I use is it is the adult report card for our lives. Our personal financial statement, and I keep it very detailed because I've got a 5-page sheet, and I think Jared has put it out there in the school community where you can download the sample or the template. It's very detailed. It's 5 sheets, but like sheets 2 through 5 backfill into the front one, and you're putting in all your expenses for your life, all the revenues of rents. It all fills in there, plus your your liabilities, your assets, and at the end it shows that net worth. And I do focus on it. I usually look at it and completely compile it twice a year, because then as I'm looking at projects, I'll put it into my personal financial statement and see what it does. Because I'm big on loan to value. You'd mentioned that right now just a little while ago that you don't have a whole lot of equity yet on your properties. I'm watching mine too, and I'm monitoring. I'm right at about 60% loan to value. And so I always think worst case scenario, path out, but also it helps me to be bankable. Going to a local bank, that personal financial statement is your adult report card. They're not caring about your quote unquote a report card from school. That is the report card. And if you show good financial stewardship with your personal financial statement, they're begging for your business. And so I come very well with documentation of how I do it. And I'll explain one thing. At the December 31st, and I do this every year for my bank accounts, I say, okay, no matter what, every year I'm just going to print out the screen. Whatever dollar amount is in that day, that is the dollar amount to the dollar. And but I do that same way every year. So then you can compare. One set of data in isolation doesn't tell you much. When I was in commercial banking, where you could read trends is at minimum three sets of data. So I will look at my personal financial statement and I will get 3 years in a row, and I'm seeing how it looks and compares from here into 2024 to 2021. And I showed, 2019, and our personal financial statement has gone from 6 digits to multiple 7 digits in 5 years. But I can show the path every year and show what I'm doing. Am I making progress? I spend a lot of time with it.
You do that just every 6 months, or are you kind of updating it throughout?
I think um, I think throughout would be too much. I know people that do. I will say that I do know people that update it monthly. I don't see a real need for it monthly, but I'm not saying it couldn't be good. I just have chosen to do every 6 months. I'll do a June 30th ending that I don't give to the bank. That's just for me.
Yeah.
And then the bank asks for my financial statement here coming up December 31st. They know I send them, and I send them the new personal financial statement, but they like it that I know my numbers in detail, that it's accurate. I was on the banking side and I remember seeing people's personal financial statements, and it was almost like a lesson in creative writing. We could figure it out that they were making portions of it up to make themselves look better. Not right, but I'm trying to make mine look exact because I don't want to fool myself. I'm wanting to be accurate so that I can really tell, am I making progress every 6 months? Am I making progress yearly?
Yeah. Harrison Trade Better says, I love it, Brandon. I agree with update ours monthly, maybe excessive, but it helps us sleep at night better. But if anyone wants to maybe see a sample or get an idea what it looks like, reach out to Brandon at Built to Rent Texas. And he can probably give you maybe a sample of his and kind of run you through it and see how he uses it. But yeah, I definitely I have one for the bank. I don't update it monthly, but it does definitely it helps you stay on top of your documents also. If you have like a Google Drive or a cloud file and keep all your statements up to date. But yeah, like when you go to a bank, right? We always talk about it, like your net worth. It's nice to look at, but it doesn't sometimes tell you the whole picture, right? Tell you the whole story, right? So your
Yeah.
personal financial statement gives you a better breakdown of really telling you how your money's working, or maybe where you can trim certain areas or whatnot, or be more efficient. But it's a great thing to show to the banks. And it also, it just, sometimes when I take these to the bank, they're like, oh, you have all this prepared, or you have all this ready for us. And they're kind of just like, oh, wow, that saves us a lot of time, or it shows that you've done this before, right? So I think it's super helpful.
I
Um,
think what I like about this one is I agree with you. The net worth tells you something, but at the bottom of the front first page, it's what is a statement of cash flow. In any business, the statement of cash flow is more important than even the profit and loss statement or the balance sheet. Now, I come from an accounting background. I was a CFO. The statement of cash flow is probably the most important document you have, and it's inside of that personal financial statement. The bottom third of that first page is it is a statement of cash flow.
All right. Well, this was always fun. I don't know, we veered off on a lot of different topics, but last couple questions here, Janitor on Fire says Cooper Rush is a much better quarterback. Jerry has a brain damage. And I don't know if you guys follow college football or LSU and all that, but anyways, my question on X that got a lot of traction was who is the best LSU wide receiver? Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson?
I don't know college football that much.
I know
I don't
Ike
follow it
is.
that detailed.
Who are you taking, Ike, if you started a team today?
I mean, after last night, Chase is pretty good, but I feel like he's been good for a long time. So Chase has been, that's a good question. It's a
Yeah,
good question.
one guy said Chase can do everything that Jefferson does, but more. So that was one guy's take on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then Janet on Fire throws in the wrinkle in his prime. Where does Odell Beckham fall into this now as the best receiver from LSU?
Oh, is he from there too? I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah. Wide
That's fine.
receiver factory now. Yep. But yeah, this was always fun. I don't know. I might just have to do Zoom from now on. It's a lot easier. Hold on. BuzzTune has a final question. I'm so bad with Excel sheets. I need them pre-made templates. Is yours? I don't even know. Is yours? I didn't read. Sorry, man. I didn't look at yours, Brandon. I just know
It
you talk.
is. It's pre-made. And what I suggested to everyone is if they can download it inside of school, I would recommend downloading a master template copy, and then you work from a second copy. There are lots of formulas in there that you might mess up, and even formulas to where it pulls from another page to put it back on the first page. I made a few of those mistakes early on, so I had a second clean copy that has all the formulas just in case as you're learning it. I know it now because I've been using it for multiple years, but I would recommend that. It's all pre-built, pre-made with all the formulas from the other pages that backfill.
Max
You said
also
that's in the
says,
school community.
It is there. Jared posted a link that would have been, it was either Sunday night or Monday. I can't remember.
yeah. So also, if you're not in school, it's probably worth $20. You can always jump in, get the sheet, and cancel after 1 month if you want for $20. But Max also says, does anyone have any Excel tutorials they have found helpful? Mm.
My
I
expertise, because I was in banking, I had to use it all the time. And being a CFO, I've learned how to write the formulas. I've even learned, I did publish another sheet for analysis of rental properties where it actually spits out the mortgage payment. It's a long formula, but I have it and I can even sort it because I know the formulas so well of, okay, here's what the principal payment would be year month 1 to 12. Here was what would be the payment from 13 to 24. I have it, but that's my background. I'm a numbers guy, but I put that out there too. That was 2 or 3 months ago. I put out an analysis spreadsheet.
Brandon Harrison says, Brandon, are you a dashboard graph builder when you go to the banks?
I don't know what that question means. I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm a little. Are you a dashboard graph builder
Because
when you're?
I know sometimes on spreadsheets, like your first page will be like a dashboard that kind of outlines everything, and then they'll have graphs and stuff like that. I don't know if he's talking about that, but
Maybe, yeah, I'm just not familiar with that.
yeah.
I come with 3 years tax returns and my personal financial statement.
And
That's what the banks
he
want.
just walks in with his colorful Aloha shirt, and they're like, "Oh, here, we'll just lend you money." He just comes in with these flashy shirts. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Ike. Showing up late, but yeah, I don't know. I might have to stick with this Zoom for a while. It definitely makes it easier because there's no lag, but I
Yeah.
can't show all the questions, so that's a little upsetting. But I wish I could. The internet guy came yesterday again, and we were troubleshooting, and I thought I had it all figured out for the restream, but when me and Brandon first popped on, it was already glitching on
Mm.
us. But all right. Well, if
Where
anyone else got anything else they want to chime in with before we wrap things up, or any questions, any final questions in the comment? No. All right. Well, it's always fun. So yeah, reach out to Brandon or join school if you want those templates. And yeah. Oh wait, hold on. Oh yeah, Max said thanks. All right, fellas. Well, have a great weekend, and we'll do this again.
Sounds good.
Thanks, man.
Good to talk to you, Ike.
You too.